Daniel Barrett is an unemployed clerk while his wife Lacey supports the family as a real estate agent. This situation has caused some dissatisfaction within the household. They have two sons, Sam and Jesse. Jesse spends much of his time with an older adolescent friend who is definitely a negative influence. In the evening, they have a girl party with their friends and everything seems normal, unaware of what's going to happen to them. Each night before bed, Sam and Jesse use walkie-talkies to talk to each other from their rooms, reading horror stories about the Sandman, a figure said to steal children's eyes. Late at night, while everyone else is fast asleep, Lacey wakes up to drink a glass of water, but she's shocked to find the kitchen completely raided. It looks as though an animal or a very hungry person broke in and devoured all the food. In the morning, Daniel brushes off the incident, assuming it was probably an animal. He advises everyone to keep the doors locked at night and then heads out for a job interview. But, yeah. At home, he also received a mortgage due notice, and when Lacey asks him about the interview, he desperately lies, saying it went well. That night, Lacey double checks that all the doors are locked before going to bed. However, when she can't fall asleep, she heads downstairs to the kitchen. To her shock, she finds all the food arranged in a bizarre and unsettling manner. Her fear grows when she realizes the doors are still securely locked. The next day, they call the police to investigate the strange events. However, since nothing is missing and no one has been harmed, the police show little concern and dismiss the matter. The same night, while everyone is asleep, all the alarms go off at the same time. Daniel and Lacey rush downstairs to turn it off, but they are shocked to see all the family pictures are gone. The next day, they call the police again, who is not concerned at all with the matter, blaming it on the children, which leads to Daniel and Lacey talking to their sons about the recent events and if they had something to do with it. But Sam and Jesse deny any involvement, with Sam saying it was the Sandman and that he told him not to tell anyone. This frustrates Daniel, making him go through his son's room to see if he can find the photos, but to no avail. The next day, Daniel and his son are at the playground when all the children start laughing at Sam for peeing his pants. When Daniel rushes to help his son, he doesn't seem to be responding to anything. He then starts screaming disturbingly. Back at home, as Lacey is cleaning the room, a bird crashes at the window, causing it to die. To Lacey's shock, hundreds of birds start to collide at their house, ominously. A group from the Wildlife Center come to the scene to check if the birds carried any virus. At night, Lacey gets up to check if everything is fine. She hears Sam talking, assuming she's talking on the walkie-talkie with Jesse. But when she goes to his room to check on him, she is horrified to see someone in the dark. She turns the light on in a panic, but nobody is in the room, and Sam is missing. Daniel rushes to the room and starts looking for his son. He sees Sam walking in the yard, but when he runs to stop him, he is frozen and can't remember anything. Right after, Lacey tells Daniel that he saw someone in Sam's room, but Daniel dismisses the matter, saying nobody could have gotten in since the alarm didn't go off, and encourages not to worry because that won't help with anything. Daniel also has a burning rash behind his ear, but pays little attention to it. Meanwhile, Jesse uses her mom's password to enter empty houses for sale and does weed inside with his friend. Back at home, Daniel and Lacey install cameras all over the house to see if anything happens during the night. Daniel takes the first shift but falls asleep. In the morning when he wakes up, he checks the footage to see if anything went wrong, and much to his shock, the recordings are flickering and glitchy. In the next scene, Lacey is at work showing a house to customers when suddenly she cannot speak and has an episode. She walks up to the door and keeps banging her head on it. Then she wakes up at her bed, making it look like a nightmare. But you know what happens next? Exactly what happens in every movie. She goes to the bathroom and finds a bruise on her head. But then her boss calls her asking about what happened and gives her some time off to rest. Immediately after, she receives another call from the Wildlife Center saying they have done research on the dead birds. And as it turns out, they were from 3 different flocks attacking the house and that something must have been Sam drawing them. The revelation scares Lacey and she starts digging the internet and finds similar incidents happening to other people. The signs, children's drawings are part of a conspiracy theory that says it's the aliens. Meanwhile, Daniel is at a job interview that goes really well, and he gets the job. Thrilled, he goes home to share the news with Lacey, who also wants to tell him about what she found on the internet about the aliens, but she doesn't want to ruin the moment, and they have sex. But at night, Lacey wakes up again and finds Daniel gone. She then finds him outside in an irresponsive state with his mouth wide open. His nose then starts to bleed. Lacey is terrified. Luckily, Daniel eventually comes to his senses. The couple check the footage of Daniel walking out of the house, but he doesn't remember anything. Lacey tells Daniel that she experienced the same thing and woke up with a head bruise. She then tells him about the aliens theory and that there are similar cases to theirs whose children were abducted after a series of ominous events, and shows Daniel drawings of aliens drawn by children right before they went missing, and that their own son, Sam, has recently drawn something similar to it. She further adds that she found an expert online who can help. Daniel doesn't buy into it. He gets furious, thinking Lacey is too naive to believe what's on the internet, and the couple get into an argument. The next day, Sam is at a swimming pool with his friends and their parents, who are shocked to see bruises on Sam's body. Meanwhile, Jesse is in the forest with his friend when he also experiences a strange episode. This scene then transitions to the hospital with the doctor telling Lacey and Daniel he thinks it's probably an emotional breakdown. He then says he found bruises and marks on Jesse's body in different geometrical shapes, and that Jesse doesn't know how he got them. Since he's under the consent age, the doctor says he is an obligation to report this to Child Protective Services for further investigation. Daniel blames what happened to Jesse on his friend, so he aggressively approaches him, asking what he did, and he gets into a fight with his dad. The same night, as everyone sleeps, Daniel watches the house through the camera, seeing the flickering again, so he immediately rushes upstairs to Sam's room and is relieved to see him asleep. But then, much to his horror, Sammy wakes up with his eyeballs gone. But then Daniel wakes up from what appears to be a nightmare. He then rushes to the surveillance cameras and watches the recording in a slow motion from previous nights, especially when they flicker, and much to his horror, he finds a dark, tall figure wandering around the house. He then tells Lucy that he wants to meet the expert she found online on the alien theory. So in the next scene, the couple meet up with J.K. Simmons. His name is Edwin in this movie, who has multiple strange pictures and symbols of aliens in his apartment. He calls them the Greys and claims to have interviewed thousands of couples on this issue, further explaining the Greys are experimenting on humans, and that the rash on Daniel's ear is how they control him, causing him to experience blackouts. Worried, Lacey asks if there's a way to remove it, but Edwin says there isn't, as he has tried multiple times before showing his own rash mark, revealing that he was also chosen by the Greys. He then says the aliens will abduct the first family member they have made contact with, in this case the youngest son, Sam, but encourages the couple to fight back, and if they're lucky, the Greys will leave them and move on to the next family, as there are rare cases where the family could avoid abduction. Lacey wants to call the police and show them the surveillance camera recordings, but Daniel says they won't believe them and that they will take the kids away from them, as everybody is already suspicious due to the bruise marks on their bodies, so the couple decide to fight back. They buy guns along with an aggressive German dog and board up the windows. Jesse, being a teenager, says this is bullshit and storms out of the house, but then returns after a few hours and says, "I want to help." The family have a quiet dinner and try to enjoy it, when suddenly the TV screen flickers and the dog starts to bark. Lacey takes the boys upstairs as Daniel takes his shotgun out. Suddenly, all the lights go out, then all the screws on the door starts to pop out, and the door opens with a blinding light on the other side. Daniel desperately shoots at them, then runs upstairs to lock himself and his family in their bedroom. While in the room, suddenly tens of aliens appear. As Daniel shoots at them, all of them disappear, along with the family, except Jesse, who is now in a dreaming state, seeing his mom lifeless and his dad gone crazy. He chases his little brother around the house, and as he eventually reaches him, he wakes up from the dream, only to find out the aliens were luring him in, and he gets abducted. After a 3-month time jump, the family has now moved to a new house. Daniel and Lacey have now dedicated their lives to fight the aliens. As Lacey is going through Jesse's old pictures, she finds Jesse's old drawings of the Greys, revealing he was chosen many years ago when he was a toddler, and that Sam wasn't the first one they contacted. Suddenly, little Sam received Jesse's distorted yelling over the walkie-talkie, showing he is still alive.